AI is an incredibly important tool. It's a tool that people are using and are going to use more. But when people say be AI first, I'm like, well, maybe we should be customer first and then think about how's the customer using AI to make those work together.
Welcome to Becoming Radical. We are joined here today with Tim Peter. Tim is a leading e-commerce and online business strategy consultant, has over 2 decades of experience helping companies really thrive in the digital economy. From everything I know, Tim, it's great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to tell your story. You know, it's not every day that we have an opportunity to talk to somebody who has been in the podcast game for over 12 years or so, who has really been principally important in, eliciting change for global brands. Startups are really growth focused, transformationally thinking about revenue and these very customer centric experiences. So we're glad you're here. I have some questions for you, but I want to keep it conversational and really just get to the core of where you are today, what you've done, and for all those listening and tuning in, what can help guide them in their path to becoming radical as well. To start off, as I mentioned, you've been helping companies navigate, from what we understand, digital transformation for many years. What do you think that term actually really means in practice today? If we were to talk about digital transformation, what does that really mean?
Yeah, so digital transformation, it's a buzzword, as these things are and the like, but it's really not it doesn't mean what people think it means. When you think about digital transformation, if you think about Google or you think about Meta or you think about, Airbnb, they don't have a digital transformation problem, right? They started as digital companies. They started in a world where digital existed or mobile existed or social existed, take your pick of those realities, right? Instead, digital transformation is business transformation for companies that precede the Googles of the world and the Metas of the world and Airbnbs of the world. They are saying, if we were to start our company today, what kind of company would we be building? And that's what they're doing. It's business transformation to a reality where digital exists, right? Where your customers carry the internet in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the change that we're seeing people do.
Huge. And it's all changing so rapidly. I mean, we think about the move to AI. We cover this topic a lot. AI everywhere, AI across verticals, across industries, across agents, across chatbots, across, reinventing X, Y, and Z and finance. I mean, we talk about it everywhere. But it's incredible. It's all happening. What are the most common mistakes that you think businesses might be making when they try to, quote unquote, go digital?
Yeah, well, and I think this is true. I mean, I didn't start doing this last week, which doesn't mean I've seen it all by any stretch. Far from. But over the course of my career and over the course of working with companies in financial services, in hospitality, in travel, in technology, in software as a service, and the like, the mistake that I think people make is they think the technology is the important part. They think digital is the important part.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's hugely important because it shapes our customers' behaviors. But it's our customers' behaviors that are actually the important part, right? It is, what do our customers do? I'm going to date myself horribly here for a moment.
Okay.
But in the early days of my career, very, very, very early days of my career, there was this thing called Alta Vista.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is going back a couple of minutes. But Alta Vista was really cool because it was the one place you could go and you could get answers to questions.
Yep.
And it was the place where everybody went. And I'm putting air quotes around that.
Yeah.
Up until about a year later when this thing came along called Google. And suddenly everybody went there. Everybody has stayed there for the last 25 years.
Long time. Yeah.
A long time, right?
Yeah.
What changed was the customer behavior, right? The company between you and your customer wasn't the important thing. It was the fact that your customer changed what they did that mattered.
Exactly. The habit.
The
experiences, right?
habits
Yeah,
the
yeah,
experiences, things along
right,
those lines. So,
right.
whether you're B2C, whether you're
Mm,
B2B, it is about paying attention to who your customer is, what their needs are.
mhm.
Jeff Bezos has a great line
Yeah.
where he is frequently asked, people he will say people ask him, what's going to change in the next 5 years or the next 10 years,
Mm,
and he said that's not the right question. The right question is
right.
what won't change,
What won't
right?
change? Exactly.
And so, when we pay attention to our customers' behaviors, what are the things that
Mm,
aren't going to change that we need to
interesting.
focus on first and foremost? And then how do we make sure we're accommodating the things where they do change, where
Right,
those matter, right?
right.
So
How do we
that's
build those
that's
use cases with the constant knowing the variables are shifting? Yeah.
You got it. Exactly right. And that to me is the mistake that I think people make is they get a little distracted by the ooh shiny of whatever the
Oh,
the
yeah.
cool tech du jour is,
I love it.
which doesn't mean that it's not cool tech. I mean,
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
is an incredibly important tool. It's a tool that
Huge.
people are using and are going to use
Yeah.
more.
Incredible. Yeah.
But when people say be AI first, I'm like, well, maybe we should be customer first and then think
Absolutely.
about how's the customer using AI to make those
Yeah.
work together. Right?
But what's really interesting about this, we talk about this a lot here on Becoming Radical, about the idea of AI and how it's transforming industries, right? Cross
Yeah.
industry. It's integrations directly into what you're doing as a team, as a business, as a culture. It's
Yep.
also cross verticalization, sub industry. It could be ecom, D2C, B2B. It's indifferent. It could be the grandma at her phone, as you said. She's over here on her Pixel or iPhone or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
looking up the latest and greatest products and how is AI influencing her. So it goes all the way to the consumer. But what's
Yep.
fascinating is, you're right, the interesting thing here that isn't being talked about enough is the customer experience, the human element, the
Right.
component that deals with what isn't changing and how can
Right.
we adapt to the change with the thing not changing. So
Right.
I think it's really interesting. We're in a super rapid fire age where everybody is like, let's get to market and build the next $100 billion business so we could cash out and be in Bali surfing every day, right? Everybody wants that.
All right.
Nothing
All right.
wrong with that. It sounds great. I'd
No,
like to
hell
be in
no.
Bali too.
Absolutely.
Let's all
Yeah.
do it. But at the end of the day, it is the shiny object syndrome. And I think you have to align great technology with great utility and business practice. And most
Absolutely.
importantly, just as you said, customer experience, really important.
I was going to say, I'm very curious about, and I don't have an answer to this. In
Yeah,
fact, one of the reasons I'm interested in your show and the people you talk to is
yeah,
I'm trying to find the people who do have an answer to this
exactly.
because we're living in an increasingly zero click world. We're living in
Yes.
a world where customers are getting the answers to their questions and
Yep.
maybe not visiting your website or maybe
Yeah.
not clicking your app or things like that.
Yeah.
And so, one of the questions that I'm really trying to puzzle out these days is what is customer experience? What is the brand
Mm,
experience if people don't visit your website?
yes.
Right? What is
Mm,
the brand experience when people
interesting.
only interact with an AI? I don't know that
Mm,
we know the answer to that yet. And I think
yeah.
it's going to take a little time because the customer behaviors are still
Yeah.
evolving. But to me, that's a real, the folks who answer that question might be the folks who have the next $100 million company, right?
I think you're right. I think they're already surfing in Bali. I think you're right. It, it, it's so interesting because, I've been doing a lot of research in this too. And when you're a digitized brand, when you're a digital product based
Yep.
brand, or when
Yep.
you're a B2B brand that's primarily digital because you're in media, or you're a service based business,
Yep.
everything you do is your digital brand experience, right? We do a
That's
lot
right.
of that on the other side of my life with RNO1, our brand and digital agency. But what's fascinating is when you're a consumer brand, everything you're doing is either split or it's all in person and face to face and very human. So you're right. And AI and technology really feeds that differently than if you're a digital first business.
Yep.
I think there's so many applications. I guess a question for you. How do you typically work with clients to balance a long-term strategy when we're talking about being customer first with the fast-paced nature of digital innovation? Because we're really approaching this, side by side. We're like, okay, we're in this lane now. We're all about customer experience, but here comes AI or something digital. How do we balance that?
It's about having a North Star. I have a very simple definition of strategy. I can do this in 200 words or less,
Yep.
which is what is the future state where you want to be? What does success look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Huge.
Where do you want to be in the future? Right?
Huge.
Where are you today? Right?
Yep.
What are the
Yep.
obstacles or barriers or
In between.
pitfalls between those two?
Yep.
Right? And then what's your path to go from where you are to where you want to be, given
Exactly.
the obstacles and the pitfalls?
That's
That's how
it.
you develop a strategy, right?
That's it. Yep.
And the reality is we may find that as customer behaviors change, as
Mhm.
as the tools that they use to interact with our brands and businesses may change,
Mhm.
we don't want to lose sight of the North Star. So we may, our path may vary, but
Yeah.
we're always walking towards that point on the horizon. We're always walking
Keep
towards
going.
that future state that we're trying to get to.
Right.
New obstacles may spring up that we can't have planned for. New pitfalls may emerge,
Oh, yeah.
but at the same time, new vehicles may emerge that we hadn't
Yeah.
even considered because we didn't know that existed. But it's always about moving towards that North Star. And so to
Yes.
me, that's how you balance those realities of,
Yeah.
I hesitate to use vision because I think visionary gets thrown around a lot and can mean different things to different
Of
people.
course. Of
But
course.
what is that optimal future state that you're trying to get to? And are the decisions you're making today moving you towards that or
Right.
moving you up away from it? Right. And as
I love
long as
that.
you're moving towards that, you're making a good decision. I mean, I'll tell you a true story, a quick
Please,
little
yeah.
aside. In March of 2020, I do a lot of work with people in the hospitality industry. That is a industry that I work with a bunch, and technology vendors and folks like that
Sure.
who support
Yeah.
that industry. And obviously, in March of 2020, the travel industry died. Right,
Tanked.
just flat
Yeah.
out tanked. Right,
It
it was
Yeah.
just absolutely went in the toilet.
Yep.
And the first thing that I told all of my clients was forget best practices. Forget everything we've ever talked about.
Yep.
Job number one right now is stay in business.
Exactly.
Because you're not going to get to the North Star if you run out of money before the end of the month, right? If you
Golden
can't
rule of
pay the
business.
rent,
Stay in business. That's the number one rule in business. Stay in business.
stay in business,
First
right?
rule. Yeah.
We'll work on doing the good stuff and the smart
Yeah.
stuff and all that
Yeah.
as we go. But
Yep.
we cannot reach our North Star. We cannot reach that point on the horizon if we go out of business along the way. So,
Absolutely true.
Now, was that a good long-term decision?
No.
Yes. Well, no. Yes, it was because if we went out of business, that was a
the
worse
not
long-term
going
decision.
out of business. Right. Exactly.
But did we make the best short-term decisions along the way?
Right.
Not necessarily.
Right.
You did what you had to do.
Well, I don't think you had a choice. I mean,
you don't have a choice.
Those were very difficult times. I mean, I think a lot of businesses had to pivot. We did the same within our agency because we found that at that time in history, people were not really being so receptive to user experience work, brand strategy work.
Yeah.
They were thinking, how do we keep the lights on? How do we get customers, users, and sales and revenue and profitability? Because everybody's falling apart. Everyone's falling down. And, honestly, not much has changed, but a lot has changed in that period of time where the friction points were so dramatic and so significant. But I think the buying decisions have changed permanently as a result of that. The conditioning
Absolutely.
So people are now looking at things fundamentally differently than they ever have. And then you have economic variabilities and all those things. But you're absolutely right. I think that was the best decision. And you have to pivot. You have to purposely pivot to get to the next thing.
Pivot. Yep,
you have to. Absolutely. Yeah, it's all true.
Yeah. I mean, for my company specifically, we ended up doing a lot. In any given year, about half of our business will be B2C folks and about half of our business will be B2B folks, right?
That's exactly it.
But that year, it was largely B2B because there were all these B2B, companies that came out of the woodwork who I'd been talking to for years who said, hey, this internet and this digital thing you've been talking about seems real important now. Can you actually help us?
Yeah. Now's the time. Yeah, exactly.
Now's the time. So, and we kind of did the same thing where we pivoted hard during that period. I don't want to say exclusively to B2B by any stretch. We kept quite a few clients and we worked with quite a few clients along the way. But obviously the business mix went far from 50-50. It's skewed heavy to B2B because there were a lot of companies who were in a place of, we haven't had to do this before. And we're really struggling to figure out how to do it in the next month.
That's it. Or we're not going to make it. We're going to fall.
Or we're not going to make it. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting. I heard something from someone. I know you mentioned Jeff Bezos, which I love. I love what you said. I heard something too, and I follow a lot of people, and I don't follow this person exclusively, but I take bits and pieces from everybody. So kind of agnostic in that way. So I looked at Dave Ramsey, and he said something the other day, the financial guy. And he basically said that today people will call you a genius, but you weren't a genius today. You were a genius a year ago, and now it's coming to life. And what's fascinating about that is it's so true. It takes so long to implement and successfully bring the right strategies to life. And then you have the pivot points along the way, like you're talking about, the unknowns, the tariffs, the economic uncertainties, the new pandemics, the whatever it is.
Yep.
And you have to adapt your North Star. Your North Star is there, but you have to adapt your strategies to get there along the way.
The path can change along the way, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings me to a question for you about trends.
Yeah.
So, we look at the world of e-commerce, right?
Yep.
Are there any trends that you're watching right now, that you think maybe some businesses should be paying attention to in the world of e-commerce that you think would be valuable?
I think the biggest one by far is we are in a zero-click world today. People keep saying zero-click is coming. I don't think zero-click is coming. Zero-click is here. I saw a number the other day. Something like 70% of searches now don't result in a click. But I think we have to think about what that means. Right?
Yes.
What it means to me specifically is that Google cannot thrive in a world where zero-click exists. Meta cannot thrive in a world where zero-click exists, right? Google made $51 billion last quarter in earnings from people clicking on ads, right? Well, they're not going to be around if people don't click. What zero-click means, if we're talking about e-commerce, is it means not that you're not going to get clicks, not that you're not going to get traffic. It's just that more of that is going to be paid, right? Your customer acquisition cost is going to rise. So we need to be thinking about how are we acquiring customers in ways that don't require having to pay for the customer to come to us every single time.
Exactly.
Right? To me, that's the trend that if I was running an e-commerce business right now, that's the number one thing that I'd be paying attention to is what's happening to my CAC, and am I taking actions that actually grow revenues, grow traffic, grow conversions that don't require paying for the clicks that are actually leading to revenue, right?
Exactly.
It's really easy to shovel money into, the big tech beast.
100%. It really is. It goes really fast. It
goes
ether. Yeah, real quick.
Well, and you look at your ROAS or you look at your ROI or things along those lines, and you can go, well, you know what? We're making an 8 to 1. We're making a 10 to 1. We're making a 20 to 1. It's great. And it's like, that's fine. But if you're paying for every transaction, wouldn't you be better served investing some of that money into ways to get people to find you without where the click doesn't matter?
I love that. I agree 100%. And that's where it goes back to what you talked about. I think there's probably like 2 or 3 things are really important. So there's customer experience and, brand strategy that could be really holistic and foundational in getting people to connect with you, irrespective of whether they land there through paid channels or organic channels. And to simplify, paid channels being you pay for something that allows you to get a click or somebody landing on your website or visiting your store or whatever it is. And organic being, it could be any medium that comes in more consistently through great content, through great awareness strategies, through email, a lot of different vehicles, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Word of mouth, etc.
Word of mouth or PR. The thing I'm seeing now,
for sure,
that's really big, and we're on the cusp of this, I'm sure you are too, is GEO, generative engine optimization.
Sure.
Looking at what's happening with, large language models, the ChatGPTs, the Perplexities, the Geminis. So what that means is if people are searching, they're searching differently these days for brands. So when you search for an agency, for instance, we're ranking now in the top like 3 or 4, right? So under certain categories, that's what you want. You want people to be able to find you in meaningful ways. And that's always changing, but it doesn't necessarily involve clicking. It involves great personalization.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right. Your job isn't to rank. Your job is to be seen. Your job is to be
Exactly.
relevant, right?
Yes.
The line that we've been using, I shouldn't say using, we're testing
Yeah.
this out. I mean, Michael, you tell me if this is nonsense or if you like it, but the
Yeah.
line we've been playing with folks is the brand is the prompt. Let's
Yeah.
fast forward
Yeah.
X number of years. I don't know how many years this will be. Some people
Sure.
will tell you this is going to be 18 months from now. Some people will tell you
Yeah.
it's going to take 10 years. But
Yep.
where our devices and our agents and our assistants
Mm.
know what we need, right?
Yep.
So, hey, I need a branding agency. I need a hotel room. I
Yep.
need
Whatever you need.
a new shirt, whatever I need. The AI is going to know enough to actually surface the brand that is right for you, right? That's
Yeah.
the vision,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Again, we don't know how long that's going to take to happen, but that is certainly the vision.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
that you don't get to be that brand
Mm.
when that vision comes to pass
Mm.
if people aren't already asking for you by name today, if you're not
Right.
putting yourself to be in a position for their agents and their
For the
assistants and their
future.
AIs
Building
to
for the
learn,
future. Yeah.
oh, this guy likes Michael Kors. Oh, this guy likes iPhones. Oh, this
Yep.
guy likes independent hotels, right? Oh, this
Exactly.
guy likes, your agency. That's critical to be doing
Yep.
the work today so
Yes.
that the brand is the prompt, right?
Yes, 100%. I agree, and you're right. And that's the thing I think that a lot of tech companies specifically get wrong. They're deeply immersed in an MVP. I hear this acronym
Totally.
all the time. I'm sure you do all the time. It makes me crazy. I love their enthusiasm to get to market, speed to market. You need to do that, of course. But the caveat is everybody's doing speed to market. So what makes you do? What makes you stick? What are you thinking about that everybody isn't thinking about? How do you build differently, better, or both? Like Sir Johnny Ives once said from Apple previously, right? And that's the key. And I think that's where it comes down to, like you said, you build the brand, you build the experience, you lean into the tech, and you allow the tech to be a catalyst for your growth. That's really important.
Absolutely. The issue I always have with MVPs specifically, which it's a great idea. I'm in favor of them. But too many people hear MVP and they put way too much emphasis on the minimum and not near enough emphasis on the viable. A buddy of mine, a guy named by the name of Mike Moran, has a great line where he said, if your goal is to build the world's greatest sports car, your minimum viable product is not a really crappy sports car, right?
Yeah.
Your minimum viable product is a really, really cool, skateboard or bicycle or motorcycle, right? Something that is a stage down from where you are.
Yeah.
But it's still got to be a really great product, because if it's it's not viable, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we like to call it BVP, best viable product. You want to bring
best
the best
viable product. Love that.
Want to bring the best thing to life, in the immediate, which can then be built off of. That's huge. And that way you're still getting in market. You're still getting people excited. You're still profiting. You're still growing. You still have great ROAS or ROI or whatever your definition is, and you're tracking for. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's interesting. How do you think customer behavior has really evolved? In the post-pandemic digital landscape, we were in the pandemic. We're now, and we don't even know what we're in. How has it evolved, and where do you think it's headed into? Because things have changed and are changing so much.
I think the two big changes that I see a lot, one of which is one of those what won't change moments, right?
Yep.
Is this has always been true, and it just gets truer and truer every day. The way I always say it is instant gratification isn't fast enough.
Yeah.
Right. People are busy. People have a lot going on in their lives, right?
Absolutely.
They want to get the answer they need. They want to get the product they need. They want to get the service they need, and they want to get on with their lives, right?
Yep.
It is a change. And again, I might date myself a little here, but I remember when people used to, surf the internet. They used to surf the web, right?
Yep.
Nobody does that anymore, right? We doom scroll, but But usually we're busy. We're in the middle of 10 things. So we need an answer, or we need the solution, and then we need to get back to our lives. So anything you can do to deliver faster, anything you can do to get people the answer faster, in whatever fashion that means, in whatever format that means, is a win. That is
It
a
is.
change that we have seen, and we just see that trend accelerating and accelerating and accelerating.
Yeah. We're in the
And
attention economy, and you need to capture
yeah,
attention because it's changing rapidly all the time. Yeah.
yeah. Another good friend of mine, a guy by the name of Ed St. Onge, loves to say, the purpose of every second of your media, whatever it is, if it's text, if it's video, if it's a podcast, whatever,
Yep.
but the purpose of every second is to earn one more second. And if
Mm.
it doesn't, that's where you stop it, right?
Yep.
That's exactly how long it should be. So the other thing that I think people care about, and it kind of builds on that, is I'm going to give you my attention. I
Mm.
want something in return that
Yes.
is meaningful to me, right? It's why I put so much emphasis on customer experience and why I think it
Yes.
matters so
Absolutely.
much,
Yeah.
because people want an experience that they can remember, or
Yeah.
minimum that wasn't painful, that was
Wasn't
as
painful. Yeah.
seamless and smooth as it could possibly be. But
Yeah.
ideally, is something where they're like, "Oh no, that was actually cool. Oh, I got a little something cool out of this that I didn't expect."
Yeah.
Right? Like
I think
that's a huge plus.
you're right. And I really believe that having more value is so underserved.
Yeah,
Like how do we add more value? Like,
yeah,
when I go to a restaurant, I remember this is many years back now. This is probably like 20 years back or something at this point. But I remember going to a restaurant. It wasn't anything great. It was like a regular, new, smaller boutique restaurant. I go in
yeah. Sure.
and they're like, here's a amuse-bouche, a little
Yep.
appetizer,
Yeah.
like pre-appetizer, little taste.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never had this before. Like,
Yeah.
what do you call it? A bouche? What are you calling this? What is it? I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I'll eat it. This looks good. And what does this cost? No. This is free. This is on us. I'm like, what do you mean this is free? What is this, Costco?
Yeah.
What is this? So I was confused, but I enjoyed it. And that was creating value. So now I'm like, oh, well, if this is this good, now imagine what this will be and what this will be and so the value is there. And I think that's so important. You have to add value, add more value. When people are they're undercutting, they're reducing costs. That's fine. You could play that game, but keep adding value above that. Do that
Absolutely.
too, but add more value. Just keep
Absolutely.
value packing, like all the time.
There's only three ways to win as I see it. First time I ran across this idea was in a book called the Value Discipline of Market Leaders, a Harvard Business Press book, right?
Sure.
But they talk about the fact that you either have the best product,
Yep,
you either provide the greatest experience, the greatest service, right? Customer intimacy,
yes,
or you have the greatest operational efficiency. It's not that you're cheap. It's not that you're cut costs.
Yeah.
It often comes in that way.
Yes.
But it's that you're so efficient, you can charge a lower price, right? Walmart didn't become Walmart. Amazon hasn't become Amazon by being the cheapest. They did it by being so efficient, they could charge less than everyone else.
Exactly.
And even Amazon thinks about things like frustration-free packaging. Like, how do we make it easy for you to open the box?
Oh, yes.
They have, they change the title occasionally, but they've had for years a VP of last mile, right? Like, how do we make sure that the minute it's coming to your house, the experience is good there, and do it in a way that's really efficient and do it in a way that we can manage it from a cost perspective and the like?
Yeah. Yep.
Because they're thinking about that from a very clear perspective of how do we create greater value for the customer. I think you're absolutely right with that.
And it's amazing because they're everywhere. They have dominated. They've monopolized. They are now on your TV, your phone. They're in your car. They're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. And it's largely in part due to experience and also due to acquisition and being where the consumer is and adapting. The North Star is here. Bezos is good. He's done. But he's going.
Absolutely.
He's still working. He's still pushing through and thinking, how can I continue to be the next big thing that isn't even there yet? What will that look like for Amazon with the team, with brilliant team members?
Absolutely.
Not just so.
Oh, yeah. You probably know this. The original name for Amazon, the original name that he wanted to use was Relentless. And actually, if you go to relentless.com today, it lands on Amazon.
Amazing.
Because that was the first domain they bought. Because their whole idea was we are going to be relentless in our pursuit of providing customers with the right experience.
It's incredible.
Right? Like that's what they do.
It's truly incredible. The success they've had is just it's been an incredible journey. And to think about how that has a trickle effect to other smaller brands. And that brings me to another question. If we're a company today, we have more of a limited budget, right?
Yeah.
Where do you
Yeah.
think they should focus their energy, their digital efforts first for the biggest impact? So, we're a little bit tighter. We're not Amazon, right? Maybe we're mid-market. Maybe we're VC-backed startup. Maybe we're even, early stage startup or
Sure.
SMB. What do we do? Our budgets are limited. How, where do we put those resources and those digital efforts?
I think there are three things that matter, right?
Yep.
There are only three things that matter. And it's
Yep.
very hard to say, put your money into one. You have to kind of put your money and your energy into all three.
Yes.
You just have to balance them in whatever way is appropriate for you, right?
Sure.
But they are content, they are customer experience,
Yep.
and they are data, right?
Yep.
And the way I think of it is content is your 24/7 by 365 customer experience, customer service rep. It is your 24/7 by 365 salesperson.
Yes.
Forget about website or app or channel, right? Think about content that is in the channels that you need to be on, which could be your website, could be your app, could be your email list, whatever.
Sure.
Could be Amazon, could be any of those guys.
Yep.
But it's about the content that serves to answer your customers' questions, provide them a great experience, and close the sale, right?
Exactly.
So that's your content.
Exactly.
Customer experience is what we've been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to belabor that point, but you want to do it in such a way that customers have enough respect for you and trust you enough that they're willing to share data with you that allows you to talk to them directly and learn more about what matters to them so that you can improve your content and improve your customer experience and get this flywheel going. Right?
Exactly.
And not have to pay Google or Meta or Amazon or Apple or LinkedIn or wherever you're getting your customers today for the next sale to that customer.
Yes.
So to me, those are the three core elements that matter, right?
Absolutely.
And these are the companies I work with all the time specifically to help them do that. I pay a lot of attention to the Amazons and the Apples and the Googles and the like, because they got big for a reason.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
They did.
And now how do we avoid having to pay them every single time? Right? Because otherwise we're just opening up the furnace and shoveling money into it. It comes down to that content. It comes down to customer experience. It comes down to data. Right?
Yeah, 100%. No, it's spot on. And I think having those strategies and those pillars and then activating those in the most appropriate ways with agility and purpose is huge. Because it's always changing. Yeah, I mean, again, the North Star is the most important thing. What are we trying to do? Where are we? And this doesn't just apply to business or technology. It applies to your life. I mean, what are you trying to do?
Absolutely. Right.
Where do you want to be? First, define that. Like, what does life or business look like? Success.
Absolutely.
Right? And then how are we going to get there? What are the steps we're going to take to try and achieve victory? And then how do we adapt it? Because things are going to happen. It's not always going to work, even if it's working. I mean, there have been so many periods where, our sales, we would have lead in the door. And then all of a sudden, no lead. And it's like, okay, well, now you have to pivot, right? So what do you do here, right? So now it's like, okay, well, that was not predictable. It was predictably unpredictable.
Right.
How do you now make it predictable? And it goes back to what you said, Tim. It goes back to the idea of great content, great customer experience, and great velocity in market that doesn't require $1 million a day to acquire $1 million customer, right? So I think that's very, very important. And we're finding so much more success with those longer tail strategies, those activations. And again, as technology interplays, that's where it can be your friend, which is huge for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to one point on what you were talking about with agility and the like, obviously completely agree. I couldn't agree more. I was trained as a musician. I was a music major in college.
Oh, cool.
My professor for my instrument, used to say, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that specifically, and it's the same thing you learned in Agile or Scrum or these other methodologies and the like, but it is not about you get it right every time. It's that you have a defined process by which you do it. So that at the end of each practice, at the start of each practice, you know what you're trying to accomplish, you know what you're working on. At the end, you evaluate where you did well and where you did not do well.
Yes.
And then the next time you do it again, focused on improving that area where you didn't do well. Pick one or two areas and do that part better the next time.
Exactly.
And do it with enough cadence, right? Do it with enough, we do it with a
Yeah.
regular cadence rather than, we did our big splashy release and then we don't do anything for
Yeah.
6 months.
And that's it.
That
And we're
doesn't
done.
work, right?
Yeah.
No, do it with enough cadence that you learn from each practice. You're
Yep.
rehearsing how to get
100%.
better at it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's perfect practice. And that's how you make perfect.
That's it. You nailed it. I love it. If you had to bet on, one digital trend, and this is hard, of course, but if you had to bet on one digital trend that will really define the next 5 years, if you were casting out, what do you think that would be, looking forward here?
I'm going to give a big answer and then I'm going to narrow it down, right?
Okay. Yep.
I'm going to say AI is obviously the thing that is going to define the next 5 years of our careers. Yep. We're already seeing a lot of this, and depending on where you are, I think you're based in the Bay Area and the like. You're probably seeing this a lot more than people in New York are, or seeing it more than people in North Carolina are, right?
Exactly.
And I mean corporate headquarters, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're starting to see CEOs, CFOs, and the like. You've heard the expression, AI won't take your job, but smart people who use AI will, right?
Yep.
I didn't love that quote for a long time, but now I do in a different way. And what I mean by that is the smart people are the CEOs and CFOs who are starting to say, how do we use this to cut costs? How do we use this to get our marketers to do more with less? How do we use this to get our ops folks to do more with less?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is AI, it is smart people using AI to take your job.
That's right.
Because they're looking at the bottom line and saying, how do we use this in a way to control costs more effectively? Yes. And I think 100%. That's probably something we're going to see play out over the next year or two in a big, big, big way.
100%.
What I haven't seen yet, and I think is where the pendulum will swing back, are the people who say, cool, we've used this to be more efficient. How have we used it to be more effective? Where are we driving our revenues? Where are we driving, growth and the like?
Yep.
And I think that is probably the next 2 years after that, right? The next stage.
Yeah,
and I'm saying 2 years, this could be, we could wake up tomorrow and find out, no, somebody just did this. But somewhere within the next, 3 to 24 months, I think that's where we're going to start to see the pendulum swing over
I
time,
agree.
right?
Wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's what we're seeing as a bit of a wake up call, or people are, and I, initially for me too, I was fascinated by AI, but as I really got into it and started creating prompts and started understanding how can it work to help me to solve problems in the day to day. Like, if I'm building a sales team and I need to give them direction, we have this here, but we need to somehow link it to this here and connect the dots so that the end user, the potential client or customer, understands why that's relevant to this and how that puts them down the funnel and gets them excited, right? So it's things like that. Or it's like, I want to come up with a better way to travel, or whatever it is, whatever the prompt is. So just when you get to know that, initially you're getting to know it and it's getting to know you. Eventually, going back to what you said before, it will know you and it will adapt everything to that. That's where it's headed.
Right.
We're a ways out, and I think there's so many things on the horizon. But your insights today have been invaluable. Talking about value, a lot of value for our listeners in our community. You are definitely becoming radical. You're changing the game. We're going to be following you every step of the way. Where can people follow you today to learn more about you and what you're doing, and potentially work with you as a partner?
You can find me at timpeter.com. That's where my firm is based. You can find us on LinkedIn. Just look for Tim Peter or Tim Peter and Associates. Yep. If I may, you can pick up my book on Amazon.com, Digital Reset, Driving Marketing and Customer Acquisition Beyond Big Tech. Yeah, which goes into some of this in more detail and the like. But I'm easy to find. Tim at timpeter.com if you want to email me. Really straightforward. But I'm pretty easy to find. I think if you Google Tim Peter or Tim Peter and Associates, we come up first. If you do a ChatGPT, we come up every time.
Good.
So I think it's how this goes. It moves every day, right? But it does. That's how you can find us.
Amazing. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. We appreciate you being here. Excited to have you back in the future, and keep doing what you're doing. It's obviously working. So thank you again for the time today.
Michael, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Becoming Radical. If today's episode sparked something in you, follow wherever you listen, join the conversation, and share it with someone ready to think beyond limits. Be unlimited, be bold, and become radical. See you next time.